am the bookkeeper, collector of the lore of reality. In this video, I want to go over these 5 interesting facts about the legend St. Jude that the government has been hiding. Some of these facts might shock you as they go against the narrative of public information. So let's begin, shall we? Number 5. Tuscany's St. Jude is not the author of the journal. In the 2040th year, St. Jude would be sighted in the Emerald Hill Zone, formerly known as Tuscany, Italy, off and on for 10 years. While many people brand him as the author of the rare artifact known as the journal, evidence would beg to differ. I've studied what I have been able to find of the journal, and it does not line up with any known documents regarding the Saint of Tuscany. The pages of the journal seem to indicate that the author is indeed St. Jude, but the age of the document seems older, much older. Many of those in this community have begun to wonder, was there more than one St. Jude? How old was he in Tuscany compared to when the journal was written? One can never be too certain. We will revisit this one later in this video. Number 4. St. Jude was an individual vigilante, not law enforcement. It's public knowledge that St. Jude was involved in police work, so much so that many people began to say that he was a part of the police force. I, for one, have never noticed any proof of that, and recent findings have actually begun to support my claim. Although I'm not too sure what he really was, it's certain that he was working alone. Every documented piece of history regarding the legend seems to have one common denominator: dark matter. Was he one of the hunters? Perhaps. Either way, the fact that he worked alone is something that the media tends to shy away from. That and many other facts. Number 3. The Black Sword. Many of you know that St. Jude never preferred the use of ballistic weapons. Instead, he was armed only with a single blade, a sword. However, it's a forgotten fact that the sword had some unique qualities to it. For one, the steel was jet black. There's no current information as to what material the blade was made from specifically, but several eyewitnesses have confirmed the color to indeed be black. Another unique quality that the sword seemed to have was that it rang out longer and louder than other blades. Some have even nicknamed the strange ring as the siren song of the patron saint. It was said to be a bizarre thing to hear, even though it was nothing truly special. Yet those who knew would talk about it for years to come. Others have said throughout the years after his disappearance that the sword had magical properties. I, for one, find that to be a foolish thought. All legends had some kind of connection to the heavenlies, which is why the Dark Ones would always fall when confronted. Perhaps the wielder of the blade was carrying some sort of blessing or something of that nature, but I do not believe that the sword itself had magical properties. Number 2. The New York region of dark matter. In the 2016 year, in the underground world of what used to be known as New York City in the Central American Zone, reports began to arise of an entire cult of human trafficking that was discovered somewhere in the city. It would later be discovered that the head of this underground business was destroyed along with the main office building, which was disguised, amateurly enough, as one of those old pornography studios. Clever. If you were to do some extensive digging, you would also find the involvement of St. Jude. Whatever his reasoning, it would appear that he was the one who destroyed the entire studio, leaving the head producer missing an arm. The same producer would go on to testify that the culprit of this, quote, devastating act of animosity, unquote, was some guy with a sword. Is it me, or does that sound like our legend? Reports stated that the studio was involved in a massive explosion, but the government was never too sure as to how that could happen in a, quote, simple content creation studio, unquote. I believe that the government knew the answer. I believe that they were involved in the funding of the studio to begin with. After several undercover liberators from the dark web found more evidence, including security footage, it would appear that St. Jude was indeed the culprit. Sadly, all known footage appears to have been destroyed. Number 1. His identity. In the beginning of this list, we talked about the Journal of St. Jude and how mysterious it is that the writings inside are way too old to line up with the Saint of Tuscany. Well, now we know why. I've been saving this tasty bit of info for several days now, but in my recent findings, I have discovered something big. His identity. It is truly shocking, yet somehow not surprising. The start of St. Jude's journey began... may be. It's time to get the heart right, look east and stick it out till the end, and until that end, this is the Bookkeeper. Stay frosty, cupcakes.